What is happening, people? I don't know. You tell me. Well, I'm Sebastian Oni, the Almost Naked CEO. I'm here because I care and because I give a damn to build each other up with creativity, engagement, and leadership to dream big and make it happen. And this is the second episode of season 5 of Unleashed Leaders of Change. And do I have an exciting guest? We have a real big challenge with perfectionism, with believing in ourselves, with having the confidence, and how do you lead anybody else unless you can lead yourself? Until meeting this person, I didn't really actually thought of anything like self-leadership. How do you lead yourself? You're by yourself. And I was like, do we need to lead ourselves? Is there something called self-leadership? And then I listened to my guest and I was like, oh my God, why did I never look at my life that way? And that changed things. And that is when I knew not just the podcast, I needed to bring her on this show as well. So I'll bring her up just in a second, right after this. I wish there was a way to just keep playing this music in the background as we conducted the interview. This would be so much fun, but apparently it's not possible. Okay, change is the only thing that's constant. Change is the only thing how we evolve, we grow. And change is the only thing we're very scared of. So today we're talking about change through self-leadership with none other than Terry McDougall. Hi, Terry. How are you going?
I'm great, Sebastian. It's so good to be here. Nice to see you again.
I am so excited. I know people who are watching us for the first time, they don't know that we know each other, but we have. You have been an incredible person in actually teaching me self-leadership by just your actions. When I was down and struggling, you were phenomenal in being understanding, compassionate, but also showing me how I can lead myself out of the dark hole I was in. So here's the first question, obviously a cliche one. Who is Terry B. McDougall?
Well, I'm an executive and career coach, and I'm also the author of Winning the Game of Work, Career Happiness and Success on Your Own Terms. My mission is to help high achievers who are what I call successful but not satisfied to expand the overlap between their professional success and their personal happiness.
Well, that's interesting. And I'm assuming you work with all kinds of CEOs, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, everybody?
Yeah, I work with business owners and corporate professionals.
Awesome. But you actually came from, being an employee and being a leader yourself in a workplace. How did your journey started into helping others from actually being an employee? If you don't mind sharing a little bit about your work life before you started your own work, and how did you actually decide to start this?
Yeah. I actually worked in the corporate world for 30 years in marketing before I made the switch in 2017 to be an executive coach. And I had actually hired executive coaches a couple times in my career when I had sort of gotten to a crossroads or hit hit an obstacle that I didn't know how to get past. And so I understood the value that coaches could bring to, ambitious people like myself who just couldn't figure out how to get around these obstacles. So I understood the profession. And I had gotten to a point in my career, I'd been at my last company for about 12 years. And I say like 10 of those 12 years were really happy. And I found myself in a job the last couple of years that I hadn't applied for, and I actually tried to say no to. But sometimes when you work in the corporate environment, you find yourself being voluntold that you're going to take a particular role. And just my dissatisfaction had me thinking, what's next? And so I decided to get a certification in coaching. And so now I kind of mine all of the experience that I had in the corporate world and help people who are facing challenges figure out how to get beyond those so they can kind of get on to more, smoother sailing ahead of them.
Right. If you don't mind backtracking a little bit. So, you were happy in your job. You had 10 years of careers behind you, lots of learning and leadership. You had senior roles. What is it that made you feel dissatisfied or not satisfied enough for you to want more out of your life?
Well, I think that it was that there were some structural issues within the place that I worked that just caused some constant struggle. And, I'm a corporate veteran. I've learned how to influence in that environment. But what I found was that all of the things that I tried weren't getting me what I felt like I needed to be really happy, in my position. And, when you try a lot of things and things aren't changing, they're not getting to the point where you're satisfied with what's going on. Sometimes it's not you. It might just be that you've outgrown the role, or maybe the environment has changed where it's just not a good fit anymore. And, it did get me thinking, kind of stepping away from the job a bit and doing some introspection. I started saying to myself, like, what am I good at and what do I like to do? And I, as a marketing director, was somebody who was always consulting with people within the organization to understand the problems that they were facing and co-creating with them strategies to, marketing campaigns to address their problems. And then, which honestly, it's very similar to what I do as a coach, working with people to help them uncover, okay, what are the issues? What would you like this to look like? What's your goal? Okay, well, let's develop a roadmap to get there. So I loved doing that kind of work, and I had gotten feedback that I was good at that, but also I'd done a lot of one-on-one mentoring and coaching, and people would seek me out who weren't even in my department. They didn't report to me, and they'd come and ask me to mentor them. So I kind of took that and thought, okay, well, maybe I can just do this professionally. And that's what I'm doing.
Absolutely. I think it will be fair to say that you didn't even know that you were a natural coach. You were born that way, and you just had that ability, and people thought out that.
Yeah, it is interesting because I have always really liked helping people with their problems. Whether it was boyfriend or girlfriend problems or getting a new job or
We're really good with it. We have only had a few chats, we've only had a few interactions, but you are effective. I have personally experienced that. So, you talk about self-work, self-leadership. First thing, as I said in the introduction, I didn't know the word. I was like, how do you lead yourself? So if you don't mind highlighting, just putting a little bit of light on what is self-leadership.
Well, self-leadership starts with understanding where it is that you want to go. If you're going to lead yourself or lead anybody, you need to know what's the outcome that I want to see here. And so getting clear on that's number one. The second thing is starting to think about, okay, if that is my goal, what's the roadmap of how I'm going to get there? So starting to imagine what steps would I need to take to get there. And then really super important is shifting the mindset to a place where you believe that outcome that you want is possible. it's really common for people to sort of mentally protect themselves from disappointment by clinging to a little bit of negative thinking. Like you might say, like, oh, I really want that new job, or I really want this, I want even a, romantic partner in my life or something like that. But then to say, oh, but that's probably not going to happen, or here's all the reason, I'm too old, or what, making excuses around it. And that's really like throwing stumbling blocks in front of us on our journey. There's always the likelihood that we could get hurt. Yes. Yeah. But if we limit ourselves through that negative thinking, we really are holding ourselves back from the things that we're saying that we want.
Absolutely. And I think it is that self-taught system that needs that tweaking, because it's almost like self-sabotage or self-abuse by stopping yourself from being the greater your version of yourself. Let's talk about you do talk about, what do you need? People are directionless. We think we have goals. We think we have a to-do list. We have tasks, but we still feel so directionless. We feel lost in the world. Mm-hmm. How does one navigate from being directionless to determining your goals?
Well, it's funny because when I first start working with people, a lot of times I'll ask them, I'll ask them, like, what would you like this situation to look like? If I could wave a magic wand and you could have what you want, what would that look like? And a lot of times people will say either, I don't know, or they'll say, well, this is what I want, but here's all the reasons why I can't have it. And I think that deep down inside, everyone does actually know what they want. But when I was talking before about that self-defense mechanism, the self-protection mechanism, where we're trying to protect ourselves from disappointment, a lot of times we'll block the self-knowledge that we have about what we really want and what our goals are, because we're trying to protect ourselves. And we've got to get beyond that and be brave enough to withstand a little bit of bumps and bruises on our way to getting something that's going to be joyful and it's going to, feel really authentic and beautiful.
And do you believe this fear that we have that, I don't want to lose this partner, or I don't want to lose this job, or all the prestige that I have, is that part of something, experiences, past, social construct? What is it that stops us, especially when we're actually successful, but unhappy? That's one of the precarious situations to be in. Successful, but unhappy, so you don't really celebrate your success at all.
Yeah, I came across some research done by Tom DeLonge, who's a professor at Harvard Business School, when I was writing my book, and he studies high achievers. And he says that high achievers are addicted to external validation. And so what I believe happens in this situation is that we're looking outside of ourselves to have somebody tell us that we're on the right path. That, you're doing this right. Let me give you a pat on the back, or a gold star, or a raise, or a promotion. That we're looking for validation outside of ourselves. And a lot of times, I work with really smart, well-educated, hardworking people, so they can be good at a lot of things. And often they're really good at things that they don't even like doing, but they're successful. They're getting the promotion, they're getting the raise, but they get it. And then they're like, ugh, like, I thought this was going to make me happy. And it isn't. And the reason why it's not is because it's not really connected to something that has meaning for them. They haven't spent the time looking inside and saying, what makes me who I am? What are the things that I love? What am I good at? Because that's where the inner validation comes from, is that when we take the time to really look at ourselves and say, what's unique about me, and what's my unique path in life? Even if other people might say, oh, no, you shouldn't do that, you might fail, or,
right.
I mean, we get a lot of feedback like that, even from people that really love us, because they just want us to survive. They don't necessarily want us to be triumphant, which honestly, right. I think all of us should be thinking about, what is success for me uniquely? You know,
I
what
love
is
it.
going to make me just joyous? That
Absolutely.
is what we should be asking ourselves. But nobody else can determine that for us. And usually they just want us to be safe. They don't necessarily want us to be, you know, rapturously happy. You know, they just want us to be safe. And that's a little bit boring, you know, and for anybody who's had like a really good job that they're making good money and all of that, like, I mean, I've been there where I'm like, okay, this is a good job. I don't love it.
Absolutely. And I think that's what people confuse a lot with having a good job or being good at something. They confuse that with success. They confuse that with I should be satisfied with this. And you bring a great point that somebody is really good at something, they are able to do it, but it's not what they want. I think that's the very definition of directionless. I am skilled, I'm good at something, maybe because of my education, maybe because of my family line experience, maybe because of anything else in life, but that doesn't mean that I enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying, you are directionless. What are some ways for us to be able to determine our goals very clearly?
Well, I mean, I actually will ask my clients to pay attention to feelings in their body. You know, that if they're doing something where they get butterflies in their stomach or they get like a sort of, you know, fluttery, excited feeling when they do it. Or conversely, if they get a knot in their stomach or they get sweaty palms when they're doing something, to pay attention to that and really ask themselves, like, why is this? You know, is this something that, you know, you really don't like doing?
I actually love that. I strongly believe, and I always say, I think posted something yesterday or today where I said, your body tells you, your body is always talking to you. Listen to your body. If you listen to your body.
Well, I mean, I actually will.
Sorry, go ahead.
That was so funny. I don't know what happened there.
I think I just double played. That's what happened. Sorry, go
on. Yeah, you know, for a lot of high achieving people, they tend to rely very heavily on their rationality, on their brain. And there's a lot of other types of wisdom that we learn to turn off that we should turn back on, and not necessarily say, oh, you're going to be only emotionally driven, or if you have a gut feeling about something, you're just going to go ahead and do it. But to bring all of these different types of wisdom together and to pay attention to all of them together and to use all of these things. You know, intuition, the bodily feelings, you know, maybe even things that come to you in meditation or prayer or, you know, from a spiritual realm, along with what you think. Because when we do that, I think that we can make better decisions because we're taking things into consideration that we know on different realms, if you will, not just on the, you know, rational realm, because boy, can we really tell ourselves some things that are not true.
Oh yes, that's the biggest thing. We tell ourselves so much
that we can fool ourselves. Yes,
absolutely. That is exactly what I call self-sabotage, you know, self-abuse. I want to take a couple of comments. I know we can't see the name, but I know this is Dr. Patty Talbot. I just went into the group. That's why the confusion happened. She's saying that is so true, as we were talking about, you know, self-leadership, and such an important question, directionless versus, you know, having your direction, determining your goals. We will be right back in a second. We just have to take a quick break and we'll continue the conversation. Welcome back, guys. I'm Sebastian One, the Almost Naked CEO, your intentional strategist. And with me is Terry B. McDougall, executive coach, and actually a phenomenal person is the best title I can give. So Terry, you and I have been talking about, what is self-leadership and, having direction rather than living in confusion, having direction in life, living a clear life. And the last thing we said was self-sabotage. So, the mindset is a huge thing. And which is what brings me to my next question. We live in this fear of the unknown. We live in this fear that we create ourselves. As you just said before the break, that we convince ourselves of things that don't even exist.
Yeah.
First of all, where do all these fears come from, especially if it doesn't exist? And then how do we move ourselves towards the positive mindset?
Well, I mean, gosh, where do I even begin with this? A lot of the fears that we have go back to childhood. When we're children, we need to rely on our parents to care for us. And we need to make sure that we're aligned with them. We have to pay attention to what their expectations are. And probably our biggest fear in childhood is abandonment. And so we learn to adapt our behavior to try to align with what our parents' expectations are. But what can happen a lot of times is that, as we grow, that just is habitual. It's just sort of like what's within us. And a lot of times we can continue to use coping mechanisms that are no longer relevant to our life, but we don't ever examine them. A lot of times when I'm working with clients, I actually have an assessment that I use that helps them identify subconscious beliefs that they have that a lot of times cause stumbling blocks, that causes self-sabotage in their lives. And what we attempt to do is raise those subconscious beliefs to the level of consciousness and to decide whether those beliefs are still serving them. Because it could be, say, for example, if you grew up in a household that was abusive, maybe you really had to always be submissive in order to keep yourself safe. But then you go into the workplace and, people don't see you as a leader because you're always, sort of fearful and you don't want to raise your voice or, offer suggestions because your experience from childhood is that, you get beat down for that kind of behavior. But that's the kind of behavior that is going to be rewarded in a lot of workplaces, right? And so if you've got that sort of internal tug of war, naturally, if you haven't examined the reasons for that behavior, you're going to keep doing it because we all have a bias towards survival, right? Keeping ourselves safe.
It is.
But a lot of times what happens is that the things that we fear are not real. Like a lot of us spend a lot of time in that sort of, fight or flight place, right? Where we're either, avoiding or we're getting defensive about things. It's a terrible waste of energy, number one. And especially when we're not actually in life-threatening situations, right? It can feel like it. I'm not saying it doesn't feel like it, but if it's not life-threatening and you're acting like it's life-threatening, you are wasting a lot of energy. And I'll just give an example. I mean, and I speak about this because I've learned a lot about this because this was my own behavior for many, many years. And, I would really try to be perfect. And, if I was, say, for example, doing a presentation at work, that I would just obsess over it and just, try to make it perfect and think about every single question somebody would ask. And then, I'd go into the presentation and I would be so self-conscious that it would take me so much energy to go through the presentation. And a lot of the things that I worried about never happened. So it was a waste of time to worry about it. But on the other hand, something would happen that I never even foresaw. And guess what? I handled it in the moment. And so the question is, what was the purpose of all the worry? I had it within me all along to just show up and do what needed to be done. And so, this is what I call like being in the flow, right? It's like tapping into that wisdom and the power that we all have within us and, calming those fears that we have about, maybe we're not worthy, or people are going to think something negative about us, or we're going to mess up and it's going to be so horrible that we'll get fired, or something else horrible will happen. And the likelihood of all those things is not very large.
Absolutely. And, as you were talking, perfectionism, it is about the journey, as you said, flow. I know this from personal experience, being delaying things because it's still not perfect.
Yeah.
Not doing things because if I do it, maybe I won't be good at it.
Yes.
I need to learn more. I need to practice more. It is true that you just need to let things happen, because that's where you really realize your full potential and you really actually begin to flourish. Um, and yes, perfectionism is such a setback. It's a self-sabotage in a way that it's frustrating, because you want to do more, you want to be good at what you're doing, but you're also holding yourself back. How can we focus a lot more on getting things done rather than being stuck on perfectionism?
Yeah.
If you have a couple of tips for that.
Well, I mean, first of all, perfectionism is an illusion, because
Oh yes.
We're moving forward into the unknown. And even things that have been done, let's just say, quote unquote, perfectly in the past, even if we do it exactly the same way, the future is different than the past. And so maybe something that's done the same way going to the future might not work well, And so I think that it's really important for us to, in the moment, look around and make our best judgment in that moment about what we think is going to work, and to try it. And, there's a reason why a lot of the startups say fail fast, right? Because they don't know what the next frontier or the next great new product looks like. They have some ideas, right? But you've got to test and learn. And the faster that you fail, the faster that you can tweak and go out with, 2.0 or 3.0. And,
right.
I actually think that it's not the failure that hurts us. It's the self-judgment about what we call failure that hurts us. If we can learn to speak kindly to ourselves, and, sort of reframe what, we sometimes will call failure as just learning. It's just learning, and a lot of times we'll talk about, babies learning to walk, right? The baby doesn't just, lay in the crib and then, one day get up and start running around, right? They're not laying there thinking like, how can I perfect this whole idea of walking, right? They get up and they try things and they fall down and then they get back up, they cry, this is all part of learning. Right.
Isn't that the best time, actually, when we don't actually put so much judgment on ourselves, we just do it, because as a baby, you just do things and you get hurt and you get up again, you cry a little bit, and then you try again. And you probably, as you start growing, you probably try more riskier things than you should. That's why we have all the baby protection.
But that's how we learn. I mean, I always think about, like, there's a reason we know what dirt tastes like, right? Because when we're kids, we're like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to eat some of this and see what it tastes like, right? But we learn, like, it doesn't taste very good. I don't think I'm going to eat any more of that mud pie.
I love this analogy. It's actually in my branding business, I actually use that a lot, baby analogy. So you've actually given me one more. This is exactly what it is. As we grow up, as we are adults, we learn so much self-judgment. I cannot disagree with you at all. Self-judgment, hating ourselves, we are so prejudiced against ourselves. I'm not good enough. I don't do this right. This is what's wrong with me. Yes, a lot of it is because of life experiences. It is because of past trauma and everything. But at the same time, we just don't give ourselves opportunity to grow, to actually expand and say, okay, this is what I'm capable of. Let me just do it. You're so right. I really love when you said that. We give ourselves the premonition of the fear of the damage that will cause, and we don't even try. We don't even go there to experience what could be. And one of the things you were saying is, with failure, I personally believe it's only a failure if you didn't learn. If you're
Well, or
learning something, it's an experience,
if you
right?
stop, right? Because yeah, you can. There's a saying that I came across a while back, which is even when you fall on your face, at least you're moving forward. And I loved
I
it
love that.
because
I love it.
sometimes yeah, like you do something and it hurts, but you will have learned something from it, and the next step that you can take will be better because of that. So it's,
Yeah.
and I also want to talk about that whole idea of like the self-judgment and all of that, like what would all of our lives be like if we stood by ourselves? If we said, no matter what happened, I love you, you're worthy, you're smart, keep going, who cares what other people think? Because it's not what other people think that bothers us. It's what we think about what other people think of us. Because,
Oh,
there's plenty of times when maybe somebody's critical and you're like, who cares about, Susie in accounting, right? You're just like, who cares about that? But, there's other people that we do care, and then we'll beat ourselves up because like, oh, my boss had some harsh words for me. What if we just said, I'll take the, constructive feedback out of that, and I'm going to leave the shame at the door, right? I'm just going to take what is useful to me out of that feedback, and I'm going to keep going. And I'm not going to sit here and, lacerate myself over not being perfect. I really want everyone that's listening to this to know that you are worthy, you are unique, you are here on earth for a reason, and go out and figure out what that is. And maybe it's in the job that you have. Maybe it's, maybe you're doing your job just for money and your reason for being here is something else, but love yourself and know you're worthy, and, put that energy into positive, productive things, not into beating yourself up or comparing yourself to other people. It's pointless. That is not why you were brought here, to compare yourself to the lady down the street or the guy at the gym or whoever's above you on your corporate ladder, or whoever you're competing with in your business. That's not why you're here.
I love that. And Dr. Patty Talbot just said, leave the shame at the door. So true. Just leave it up. It is exactly, as you say, I call it the self tripwires. We create so many tripwires around ourselves that we don't even try to go across it because we've already decided, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm not worth it. And, it's literally self-sabotage. Nicole Tomshell says comparing yourself to others is pointless. I agree. One of the friends I have, Eleni Anistis, I always worry about saying her last name right. She actually says we suffer with comparisonitis. It's a huge cancer, really, because even before we start and recognize our capability, we are comparing ourselves to, am I good enough according to this person or that person? Right. And we stop. But first of all, you have given me so many further topics to discuss with you that I think we need to have several episodes with you. I enjoy this conversation, but we've got to wrap up soon. But before we do that, I want to ask you a little bit about your book as well. You have written a book. What is all that about, and where can people find your book?
Yeah, I actually have a copy of it right here.
I love it. Thank you.
Winning the Game of Work, Career, Happiness, and Success on Your Own Terms. And I wrote my book. It came out in April of 2020. And it's really a lot of the hard-won, unwritten rules of success in the workplace that I learned. There were a lot of misperceptions that I had, as I was the first person in my family to go to college, and so there wasn't really anybody to like serve as a role model or guide me when I got into the corporate world. And I was really kind of naive about what I thought it would take to succeed. And I did fall on my face a lot, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I just kind of got to a point where I wanted to help other people avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made. And that was also part of the reason why I was so committed to doing a lot of coaching and mentoring when I got to be a leader, because I wanted to help the people around me to be able to be successful without struggling so much. And a lot of times when things aren't going well, we can look at ourselves and think there's something wrong with us. And that's not the case. A lot of times it's just like small tweaks in behavior, or even the way that you're looking at what's going on around you at work can help you to recognize how you can show up differently. And once you show up differently, you get different results. And it's not always about working harder or, feeling like, the cards are stacked against you. It's just that there's some, strategies for how you succeed at work that nobody tells you. I mean, I was lucky that I had a mentor at a certain point who was, really influential in terms of like pulling back those curtains and pointing out to me specifically what was going on at work. And I was dumbfounded, actually. It got me thinking about, what I tell a lot of people now is really look at other people and think about what their motivation is for the behavior that they're doing. Because like when you understand what other people's motivation is, you can influence them. And a lot of times we just assume that other people's motivation is the same as ours, and it never is.
Oh, absolutely. We are so unique. And looks like you already have some fans for the book. Dr. Patty says, looks like a great book. And Nicole says, sounds like an amazing read. So where can people find it? Is it available on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon worldwide.
Excellent. Perfect. So I will be buying it right now, just after this show, just so you know.
Thank you.
How can people contact you?
People can contact me at my website, which is terrybmcdougall.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and my handle on LinkedIn is Terry B. McDougall. So love to connect with any of your listeners there on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And guys, if you need to connect with Terry, you can see the link at the bottom as well, scrolling influencers.romania.com/Terry. All the shows that she appears on will be there, all her contact information, link to her book, any events, anything that she's doing will all be on her media page on Romaniac. So go and check out influencers.romaniac.com/Terry. And I actually have a little surprise and little surprise for you, Terry. I know that I mentioned to you. So you are actually the first person to be given the Dromaniac Verified Influencers badge. And you, from within next 7 days, you'll have a dedicated premium page on our website that is all to do with everything that you do. It's almost like having a second website, and you'll have a little boutique as well. So congratulations for being the first verified Dromaniac.
Oh, Sebastian, welcome. That's so nice. Thank you so much.
Hey, you have done some great work. This is your second show with us, and the information you have, the knowledge you have is incredible. So it's actually an honor to have you as the first verified influencers of Dromaniac, and I'm looking forward to learn so much more. Before we wrap up, I have to ask, how do we jump across the barbed wire that we create for ourselves, the challenges and the melodrama that we create in our own head?
Well, first of all, just being aware that it's there. So often we feel trapped, but we actually have our own key. Okay. So, if you hear yourself saying like, they won't let me do that, like ask yourself, who's they? Right? Because a lot of times we have more power than we're using. And it really is our own, what we're telling ourselves that is holding us back. And then, you said something about like, what's the big leap that we can take? A lot of times the belief that we have to take a big leap keeps us from taking even a baby step. So give yourself credit for baby steps. It's okay, right? If you're taking one tiny step outside of your comfort zone, give yourself credit for that. Because the more you do that and the more you realize, hey, I'm safe, right? Nothing bad happened here. That's going to give us the courage to keep going. And if you just keep taking small steps, the next thing you know, you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, I've come a long way.
I love that. It's almost like rewarding yourself at every step, and I love that.
Yeah.
Dr. Patty says, congratulations, Terry. So there you go.
Thanks.
I'm just so excited. You're the first verified influencer, and it's going to be exciting. You're gonna, we'll send you the information with all the benefits you get. So congratulations and welcome to the Influencers Verified section. All right. Thank you so much for your time. The time is never enough. I wish we could hang out more. But now that you're a verified influencer, you can come back anytime. There are 9 different shows to choose from. Give us a story, give us an idea, and we'll bring you back. And guys, you also, if you want to come back if you want to be a guest or you want to come back again, just simply go to dromania.com/guest and get the process started. Thank you so much, Terry. It was really fun hanging out with you. All right, guys, that was Terry B. McDougall. It was an absolute amazing conversation, and I love talking about self-help. I love talking about overcoming your own self-sabotage. Terry has actually, just in conversations, just in chat, helped me so much individually as a person. Even before I got the opportunity to interview her, get to know her, she already started helping me. That's how natural leader and a coach she is. And go and check out her website, terrybmcdougall.com. You'll find all the information on the website. I hope this episode was helpful and it supports you in some way. We'll see you next time. Until then, please take care and remember to dream big, make it happen.